California girl, she don't need no direction. Country California girl, love is her protection. Even though she's holding on, she won't stop. She's ride or die like a soldier now. Started that way off top. Hey.
Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, a heavyweight champion of the world. Yes! Just got the phone from Sugar Hill Stewart in America. We're gonna smash AJ. 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, done! Can't wait.
Everybody needs a friend sometimes. True love and happiness. Everybody needs a friend sometimes. 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 True love and happiness. Everybody needs a friend sometimes. 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 True love and happiness. Everybody needs a friend sometimes. True love and happiness. Everybody needs a friend sometime. 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 Everybody needs a friend sometime.
in The Athletic, and that'll be available this week over. And if you're not a subscriber, again, you can go to theathletic.com/PuckandCopp. Lance, now we're going to be joined by the man, or at least as he calls himself, Eddie Hearn. Big plans, take over boxing in the U.S. and in the world. And we're going to see what Eddie has to say now about Joshua Fury, Canelo Alvarez, fighting on February 27th, probably with the Zone, and a whole lot more. Eddie, welcome to the show. Eddie, what's the latest there with Canelo? You're going to be promoting his next fight, right?
There's a good chance. We had a great time, although our guy lost in December. It was a pleasure to be working with Canelo and Eddie Reynoso. We know that he has the Yildirim mandatory, which he wants to fit in between his notorious schedule of May and September, which is great to see him so active. We are in discussions with a couple of venues at the moment, and I'm hoping we can get there. Hoping that we can finalise a deal. I think it's 6 weeks away, so we really need to get that announced this week, and hopefully he chooses us. It would be a real honour to promote Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, Eddie, I was told that the major deal points at least were already agreed to with you and Canelo's side. Obviously, you need a site, and we know Texas has shut down boxing for the foreseeable future. Does Miami make the most sense? We heard you talk about that in the past.
Yeah, we have had a couple of conversations with Miami, the Hard Rock Arena there, Miami Dolphins, which is an incredible venue. And, as a fight fan, as a Brit, it'd be an honour to promote an event at the Miami Dolphins ground. We know that Miami has been hot and cold, mainly cold for boxing over the years, but it's always I've always had that curiosity as to why. It is one of the states that is open right now. It is one of the states that's holding major events. I guess it's more of a risk in terms of numbers than Texas because of the lack of major fight events there. But Canelo Alvarez is someone that transcends that. I think this isn't an unknown world champion. This is one of the biggest stars in the sport, if not the biggest star in the sport. So, I think that wherever you go will be interesting, and it would be nice to do something different. But I do love Texas, and I did love being there in December. We are talking to Brian Francis and the Texas Commission there because it looks like we'll hold Chocolatito against Estrada there in March. And if we can squeeze one more in on February 27th, that would definitely be a great option for us as well.
Great. When do you expect to hear from Texas, Eddie, to get that, kind of tightened up as to where you're going?
I think probably in the next 48 hours, Lance. Obviously it's frustrating because February 27th is 2 days away from March, when they plan to sort of reopen boxing, if you like. And it is Canelo Alvarez. It is a great opportunity for Texas, for the sport, for the commission. But they've got to act as they feel best. I've got a lot of respect for Brian Francis and the team there. We had a fantastic time working with them on December 19th, and ultimately we respect their decision. Hopefully they give us the green light, and hopefully we can bring another major fight to Texas.
All right, Lance, let's take a real quick pause here as we hear from one of our sponsors.
Eddie, it seems like it's such a natural for you with Canelo. You jumped on the last fight. You did a very impressive job. I can't remember a Canelo show that was as impressive as that one. And now you have the opportunity to do this fight and maybe even get him in there against your fighter, Billy Joe Saunders, in May. Give us can you specify how close it seems to, being the promoter of choice for Canelo moving forward?
Look, it's massive for us. It's as a fan, Canelo is one of my favourite fighters. You have to say he's pound for pound number one. I think the two biggest global stars in boxing are Canelo Alvarez and Anthony Joshua. And if we got to promote both of them, then obviously it would be an honour, and we'd be in a wonderful position. I have a lot of respect for Eddie Reynoso. We have a great relationship across a few fighters. And when the opportunity arose, it was difficult with Callum Smith because I wanted Callum Smith to win. So I couldn't really get involved as I would have liked to have been in the whole team Canelo thing. I want to wear the tracksuits. Right. He sent me I have to say a huge thanks to Canelo Alvarez because he gave me a pair of Dolce & Gabbana pajamas, and after I saw him wear them at the weigh-in.
He really sent them over to you?
Better than that, he actually got them for me before I left Texas. So it was a classy move, It was it was a great gesture. And, you know, although I don't look as cool as him in the pajamas, you know, sometimes little gestures like that, they mean a lot, you know. And for Canelo Alvarez, the pound for pound number one, to put his faith in me, if he does, as his promoter, it would be an honor. And, you know, the responsibility would be huge, and I take it very, very seriously. So, you know, we cross our fingers. I feel like we have a great relationship. And I feel like there's so much we could do together, you know, not just solidify his position as the undisputed champ at 168 pounds, but take him around the world and box him around the world. You know, he's that good. He could be the greatest fighter of our generation. And, you know, like I say, as a fan, as a promoter, it would be an honor. You know, I don't want to, you know, sing his praises too much just in case he doesn't choose me. But, you know, I hope, hopefully we can get something done.
Eddie, all you can do is put yourself out there and hope for the best. A star-crossed Eddie Hearn here.
You've been doing it for years, Mike.
That's all you can do. Just waiting on the right one, you know, Eddie. But speaking of two other stars, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, it seems to be a formality at this point that they are going to fight this year, regardless of this Wilder litigation that seems to be picking up now with the arbitration being initiated soon. What do you think is the last hurdle for Fury and Joshua to finally get this completely finalized?
Well, probably to sign an agreement. You know, I think at the moment it's difficult because I don't want to bore people. And every interview I give, you know, it's like the same answers. And everyone says, "Oh, you said that last week." And, you know, the fact is we're in great shape. You know, we're drafting contracts at the moment. The devil is always in the detail. It can always fall apart, but no one's looking at anything else. You know, it's not like normally, oh, there's that other fight you could take instead, or there's that other promoter over there who's lurking with a big offer from another network. This is it. You know, this is the fight for both guys. So we still have to sign contracts. So it's never done until, you know, that moment, or in this case, in this world we live in today, it's never done until they're in the ring. But certainly we're moving at a good pace. We're moving in the right direction. And we're probably on the verge of going out and trying to talk through and confirm some of these offers that we've had to stage the fight around the world. And that's really the next step, to look at the site fees, look at the venues, and make sure both fighters are happy.
I mean, this fight is going to land in the Middle East more than likely, yeah?
Or the Far East. I mean, you know, we've had about 8 offers now from different countries. Some realistic, some not so realistic. But, you know, we've had some big plays from the Far East as well. Middle East is the natural option. You know, you'd always think that through the success of Ruiz against Joshua in Saudi, they'd want that fight, and they do. And, you know, we've had offers from other countries in the Middle East as well. But the Far East, you know, Singapore and China are making big plays as well. And, you know, we've just got to look into those in great depth. I don't want to waste people's time. You know, I'm not someone that goes and has all these meetings when things aren't done. When I know the opportunity's there, when I know I can sit down with someone and say, if you pay the right money, you've got this fight. You know, and we'll work through that with Top Rank and make sure that the fighters are happy and we can maximize their revenue for the fight.
It's a massive fight, not only because it's a heavyweight unification fight, Eddie. It's massive because, like, it's very difficult to say who's going to win this fight. I mean, me and Mike, as, you know, neutral journalists, well, I look at it and it's a tough one to pick on. I've settled on Joshua, just saying that his power is more supreme, and I think.
Well, that's good because Mike thinks Fury's going to win.
He's wrong.
That's correct.
Wrong. Yeah. But lay it out for me. How would you, I know you're his promoter, but how do you see this fight going? And can you talk about the quality of the match itself?
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous fight on so many different levels, isn't it? I mean, not just stylistically, but in terms of the two characters. You know, they're both very different. You know, Tyson Fury's been fighting since virtually he came out of the womb. And, you know, Anthony Joshua picked up boxing at a late stage, had a limited amateur career, but it did involve Olympic gold, you know, and silver in a world champ. So AJ for me is someone that impresses me more and more every day. In fact, spending time with Canelo Alvarez, the two are very similar. You know, not in terms of fighting style, but in terms of mindset, love of the sport, and their willingness to improve and their willingness to create a legacy. So I agree. You know, I think it's a very tough fight to call. I do think it's a 50-50 fight, but I give my man the edge. You know, I believe he has the speed and the power. Styles do make fights, and Fury's going to be tricky for anyone. But, you know, AJ is not Deontay Wilder. You're not going to be able to just pour him off and just keep him at bay and You know, this is a big, strong heavyweight that likes to fight on the inside, likes to fight on the outside. His jab is underrated. You know, his feet are underrated. All of these things, and he punches very hard. So he needs to get in there. He needs to get amongst it, and he needs to set it off on Tyson Fury early in the fight. And I do believe he'll stop him. I do believe these guys could fight 10 times, and you might get different results every time. Who knows? But what's going to matter is that first time, and of course the second time. But I just believe that AJ is getting better and better. And, you know, the best time to fight AJ is now, rather than in 2, 3, 4 fights time, because he's going to be even better by then. But I've, for a long time, believed that he's the best heavyweight in the world. And I believe he knocks Tyson Fury out. You know, I know that Fury got up from a Wilder shot, the 2-shot combination, which he rode very well. None of those shots hit him particularly clean. They were still heavy shots. But, you know, you've seen him down against Cunningham. You know, you've seen him hurt before in other fights. And AJ's a different kind of beast. You know, if he has you hurt, he's not going to let you go. And you know, I'm going to be taking a lot of money off Mike Coppinger in that fight.
Me too.
Well,
me too.
He did have Ruiz hurt, and he did let Ruiz off the hook. So that's one already.
You know, he didn't. He tried not to let him off the hook. You know, it wasn't because he decided to let him off the hook. He walked onto a left hand that somehow hit him on the absolute sweetest spot on the temple. So, you know, I like it because there's still the jury, I guess, for some reason, remains out on Anthony Joshua despite what he's achieved, despite his resume. And he goes into this fight as the underdog, the betting underdog. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that because it gives him the bit between the teeth. And, you know, the great thing about this fight is the belts are great. And, you know, I had a little bit of a back and forward with Maurizio Suleiman last night because, you know, I did an article where I said, you know, maybe the belts evaporate in a fight like this. And, you know, the governing bodies have got to be careful because there's a lot of risk in boxing right now for promoters and the people putting up the money. And, you know, the governing bodies remain intact, taking their percentage. I don't think you like that very much, but I have a huge amount of respect for Maurizio and the belts. But this fight, it just tells you who is the best, doesn't it? You know, there's no arguments. You know, Mike, you believe that Fury wins this fight. If Anthony Joshua wins this fight, you have to sit there and say he's the best heavyweight in the world. And vice versa for me. You know, if it doesn't go our way, Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight in the world. But this is the first time in a long time that you can genuinely say it. And that, for me, is bigger than the belts. You know, that's about proving who is the best, who is the baddest man on the planet.
Yeah, no doubt about it. As boxing goes, is how the heavyweight division goes. So just a couple things on when you talked about the devils and the details. Is there still talk about having a second fight being part of this deal? And I had heard that there's some momentum being made that maybe you can keep the WBO belt to be part of this fight.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it is a 2-fight deal. You know, that's part of the agreement of the fight. I think these guys could fight 4 or 5 times, and maybe you end up seeing that. With regards to the WBO belt, that's still ongoing. I mean, once this deal is made, we'll write to all the governing bodies, and we will say, do you want to be part of the biggest fight of our era? Do you want to be part of the biggest fight in boxing? Do you want to be part, and are you happy for this fight to be undisputed? And that question mainly goes to the WBO. You know, I've had some great conversations with Paco and Gustavo at the WBO, who are fair people. You know, on one hand, you can't not be part of this fight, right? You can't stop this undisputed heavyweight fight, because if we do, we might as well, like I said, with the governing bodies, we might as well pack up. But at the same time, you can't disrespect and disregard the position of Alexander Usyk, the mandatory challenger. So we have to make sure that Usyk is happy. We have to make sure that there's a fair resolution. But we also must make sure, quite frankly, that all the belts are on the line, because that's what AJ's always wanted. And just in my arguments, you know, I said if one belt's missing, we might as well vacate all the belts, because this fight, the value in this fight is it tells us who the best heavyweight in the world is, and it gives the winner the chance to be undisputed and win all the belts.
You know, Eddie, I would really love to see you, Joshua Fury, and everyone get together and throw all the belts in the trash at the press conference to kick it off. I don't think you guys have the balls to do it.
There you go, Mike.
Mike, what's the matter with you? Don't you like the governing bodies?
Yeah, I also have a huge amount of respect for Mauricio Sulaiman. You're right. So I don't even know what I'm saying here.
Look, I would say this though. The one thing is, Mike, is when you talk to a young fighter, you can't disregard the want of a young fighter to win a world championship belt. Those pictures are ingrained in history. Hagler, with the world championship, Sugar Ray Leonard with a WBC belt. That is, and it's a bold move to say we're getting rid of the belts, and we're just going to create a new belt, or I don't know what you do. I don't want to do that. I want to make it clear. This isn't me saying, boxing's about to change, we're getting rid of the belts. I'm just saying that sometimes, we're doing shows right now where, we've got a risk of 7 figures on a show. We could lose a couple of $1 million on a show, right? But for the governing body, the email and the invoice keeps on coming in. So
exactly.
we just have to make sure. And by the way, a lot of what they do, they do a lot of good for the sport as well. I know that your relationship with Maurizio is up and down, but they are involved in a lot of great causes as well at the same time. But we're running a business here, and we have to be allowed to do things that benefit the sport, especially if we're paying for it. But you can't also disregard people's rights, like Alexander Usyk. Does that make sense? So we can't just go, sorry, Usyk, because one day I'll have a fighter in that position. I'll be saying, no, hang on, you can't do this to me. I'm a man, but ultimately we just need a bit of common sense. And we're in an era right now, it's going to be the same this year. Boxing's just got to brace itself. We've all got to hold hands, and we've got to wait for the storm to pass.
Right, but to use an American term, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. And the number one complaint I have from people who used to watch boxing, who no longer watch it, is they have no idea who the champion is. There's too many champions. And now in 2021, we're at a point where some of the sanctioning organizations even have 2 champions. So somebody's going to have to fix this. And if it's not you, I don't know who it is.
Maybe it's you.
Maybe it is.
We'll see.
You've got.
But moving on, Eddie. You have Canelo Alvarez is trying to finalize the 2-fight deal now. It seems like Billy Joe Saunders is in the best position to get that Canelo fight in May. But what does that leave us with Demetrius Andrade and his mandatory with Liam Williams? Your efforts to make Andrade against Billy Joe Saunders. How does this all play out, you think, in the middleweight division and super middleweight division there?
Well, the WBO have called that fight and called purse bids with Williams. So you are likely to see Andrade Williams as early as spring, maybe even March. So we need to get that fight done and out of the way. The path is really clear for Billy Joe Saunders to fight Canelo Alvarez. We've just got to try and agree a deal with him to do that, And we are at a stage now where we don't have the guarantees of the major gates, and a lot of fighters are taking less money. That's not really a conversation that you enjoy having with Billy Joe Saunders, and he feels that he can win the fight, but he also wants to be rewarded for the fight. I understand. So we've got to try and reach a deal with him, which we're close to doing. He really needs that fight too, but he's not just going to take it by any means necessary. But if Billy believes he can win that fight, which I believe he thinks he does, and I think he's got a great shot in the fight, then he needs to take the opportunity, and hopefully we can get him over the line for that fight on Cinco de Mayo weekend.
You recently announced your UK schedule, Eddie, and you've got basically the headliner among the 5 cards that I see is the Povetkin Dillian White rematch, March 6th. How excited are you for that fight?
Excited, but very nervous. Dillian's become a good friend. He's a real rugged individual. This is a guy who was really paying for his own fights when he turned pro. Looked like a big favourite to beat Alexander Povetkin, and a particularly big favourite after 4 rounds. And just one of the most stunning knockouts I've ever seen at a fight live. I know there was no crowd, but even the people that were there were just numb. And this is such a big fight now for the career of Dillian White, because if he's going to get that shot at the world title, or he's going to keep fighting these huge fights, he must beat Povetkin on March the 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to your US schedule, Eddie, I mean, you've mentioned some fights like Demetrius, it could be Canelo. You've already got Estrada and Chocolatito on the books. What else is going to happen in the first half of the year with Matchroom here in the USA?
Well, obviously, we hope that we can bring Canelo to a Matchroom and DAZN show on February 27th. And then, of course, we have Chocolatito against Estrada unification fight on March 13th, which I just think is just a great fight. Demetrius Andrade will likely figure that month as well. April will be Devin Haney, and we dream of the Ryan Garcia fight if the Zone want to try and enforce that one along with the WBC. But we know he's got dreams of fighting Gervonta Davis, and if he does, respect to him, that's a big fight as well. There's other fights in the pipeline. Another one that I'd love to make is Dimitri Bivol against Gilberto Ramirez. You know, Dimitri needs a big breakout fight. Ramirez is a good fighter. I feel like he needs a big fight as well. That's a good fight to make. And, you know, Josh Warrington, who is now, you know, in with all due respect, probably a bit of a tick-over fight on February the 13th. We have to try and make this Kanzu fight, or if not, Gary Russell. You know, Warrington against Gary Russell is a great fight, and Gary Russell sits there with no fight scheduled, with nothing planned, you know, so hopefully he can dive in and take a big fight like that. So couple that with Joshua Fury and a Gennady Golovkin fight of some sort, and you really have an electric first 6 months of the year.
Is it going to be, is there a chance that it'll be Golovkin against Munguia?
That's a fight that's been discussed. I think it's a great fight.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I have to be honest, I still like Golovkin against Demetrius Andrade because it's a unification fight. It's a really interesting matchup, but, you know, no one's queuing up to fight Demetrius Andrade because of his ability. Munguia Golovkin is a firefight, isn't it? Great fight. Yeah. But, you know, I think Gennady's looking for that big fight as well. I think probably 2 of those this year.
Chocolatito Estrada, you said Texas. Is that going to be San Antonio, Dallas?
There's a couple of options there. It won't be Dallas. Could be Houston if we don't go there with Canelo. Could be San Antonio. Could be Corpus Christi down there, which is could be fun and wild, and you know. But I think it's, you know, I really want fans for that fight. You know, I mean, it's going to be just a fight of the year contender before it's even started. You know that, but I really want to see fans there, and that's going to be got a great card to announce this week. Actually, we'll be finalising that. It's going to be a World Championship triple header, and it's going to be a really great night on March 13th.
So where does Rungvisai play into all of this?
So he fights the winner. So he was the mandatory for Estrada. We've given him another fight in Thailand. So these two will fight on March 13th. And then the winner will fight Rungvisai later this year.
Eddie, is it because of COVID that, I mean, I know Canelo expressed interest in maybe taking his fight to Mexico. You could have maybe put Estrada and Chocolatito in Mexico. Is there difficulty in getting a fight down there?
Yeah, the numbers obviously are spiraling there. And, you know, I think obviously we know that the numbers are high everywhere, and that includes Texas. But we have got a good model in place with Texas. Our bubble was fantastic for the Canelo fight. You know, so was our policing of the event, the stewarding of the event there. And, you know, if we do go to somewhere like Houston, obviously they've had, I think, 6 or 7 NFL games there since September. So they're really geared up now for big events. And, you know, to be able to get that many people in an event, in a venue these days is really special for boxing.
Eddie, before we let you go real quick, one last question. What's one fight you think could materialize for Matchroom in 2021 that's not on anyone's radar, really, that we haven't even thought of?
Dillian White against Deontay Wilder.
Whoa.
I love that fight. I mean, listen, we all know Dillian's got to take care of business on March 6th, and that's going to be a tough rematch against Povetkin. And we all know that he wants a world title fight, but he's been calling that fight out for 4 or 5 years, and not once did Wilder take the bait. In fact, I think Wilder once DM'd him to say, just to let you know, you will never get the opportunity to fight me. You know, there's that much goading. And now Wilder's been defeated, he's calling out Dillian White as well. So we'll see. Let those guys keep winning. If Dillian can't get a world title fight later after the Povetkin fight, I would love to do that fight. That's huge numbers in the UK, huge numbers in the US. The build-up will be immense, and it'll be a real fun fight too.
All right, there you have it. Thank you so much to Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing, for joining us today on the Povetkin Boxing Show.
Cheers, guys. Take care.